which includes our Sunday afternoon group and our breakfast club. It is now April 11th already. We have, of course, Commissioner Vannessa Dorantes. How are you?
Hey Ken, what's going on? Child Abuse Prevention Month is April, which is, a lot of times when we get a lot of publicity and a lot of requests for media attention, and we've got a lot of competing demands for that this
Just
week.
a
So we're going
few.
to talk a little bit about that.
Just a few. Just a few. So we wanted to start out by talking about just a great visit we had with Governor Lamont and Lieutenant Governor Bisowitz down to Solent North, led by Dr. Brett Rayford. What a just a great event that was. Can you tell us what happened and what you saw? And I think we were all on cloud nine after leaving East Windsor that day.
So it started with Dr. Rayford bragging about the entrepreneurial drive and the maple syrup tapping capabilities of the Mr. Mitchell out there and the kids and at Solent North, and how they use the maple syrup in their Young Chefs program. We know we have SARS out there leading the kitchen, and how well all of those things work together this time of year around the maple syrup thing, which turned into a challenge by our very own Vinny Russo, our
Mhm.
legislative program director, who he himself has a knack for tapping maple trees and creating syrup. So that turned into maple syrup battle royale of what was better, the Connecticut syrup
Yeah.
or the Massachusetts syrup. And we invited the governor, and he said yes. And so we had he and the lieutenant governor on last week take a tour of the Solent North campus. And when I tell you the staff there just shined, they did such a tremendous job, as did the kids
Yeah.
that were excited to welcome him to show around their campus. We were able to not only see the maple syrup production, but also their brand new sensory integration room. And
Yeah.
boy, the photos we have
Unbelievable.
from that are just tremendous.
Yeah.
The additional capacity of their clinical toolbox with a room like that is just endless. So we'll see more information on that as that starts to develop, but the visit
Yes.
was just really good.
Absolutely. We have some great pictures of both the governor and lieutenant governor eating the Belgian waffles prepared by the youth,
Wasn't it French
pouring.
toast? Was it French? I think it was French toast, Ken.
You know what? I eat anything. It
You
was
ate it.
Belgian something. I ate it. French toast waffle. We'll go with. They ate whatever they put out. And the governor also was able to meet, as well as the lieutenant governor, Daryl Gahogan, who was a children's services worker at Solent North, who saved one of the residents' lives by completing the Heimlich maneuver a couple weeks ago while that youth was choking. So what an unbelievable act he completed, and how nice he could meet the leaders of our state.
Yeah, it was like right at the end of our last video, we had gotten notice of our staff springing into action, and I included that in our last time together. And I was glad that we were able to kind of connect the dots on that and meet him in person. And he was such a
What a great
humbly
guy.
appreciative of the spotlight, and kind of didn't want that, because he basically said, I was trained to do this, and he had done it once
Yeah,
before in his career, and it was great to be able to acknowledge that the staff there are such consummate professionals, and they're always kind of making sure that the needs of the kids are met there.
absolutely. So congratulations to Dr. Rayford and the staff. And Commissioner, I think the next really big agenda item we had on for this morning is unaccompanied minors at the border and the potential for youth to be placed at a facility in Connecticut. All over the news, many comments, many ideas out there. Can you help us understand the most recent information, the correct information from the department's perspective?
Absolutely. And if you remember, when we were at Solent North, we were, the visit was supposed to be about the facility, and
Yeah.
this topic came up. And then that became some of the questions that we got and that the governor got while we were there. So, what I will tell you is that when the vice president was here, she asked the governor, is this something Connecticut could help with? Connecticut has always been a very humanitarian state, one that knows the necessity of helping when asked. And when she asked, it was kind of at the same time that Health and Human Services were reaching out to jurisdictions across the country to see, what we could do to help. And so the governor has tasked me
Hmm.
with working with a very small group to start to craft out what the Connecticut standard of care would be, or we to help? Because if you recall, several years ago, when there was a surge at the southern border, Connecticut did not have a coordinated state effort. We've
Correct.
got some really great subject matter experts in this unaccompanied minor space, or through the Office of Refugee Resettlement, that have worked with some agencies here in Connecticut all along. But any type of really formal Connecticut response we didn't have at that time. And so what the governor and I have been talking about is, how do you do that in a way that comports with the standards of care here? And so that has then morphed into where we could secure
Yeah.
space for kids. And one of the places that he and I went to look at, of course, was CJTS, because it is
CJTS.
a vacant state-owned building. And we know, as soon as you say CJTS, all of the history and the public perception and the advocacy around that space in its prior iteration starts to bubble up. You know, we had some professionals within the department who worked really hard in that space. And we
Yeah.
also know that the responsibility for juvenile justice was taken from DCF, or was moved to the judicial branch back in 2018. And while that was happening, there was a lot of public comment, public sentiment. There was a lot of concern about the care kids receive there.
Sure.
We know that the perspective is everything. You know, the perspective of the people that work there every day, the perspective of the leaders of that space. Shout out to Bill Rosenbeck and all of the staff
Absolutely.
that
John
did a
DePilla. Yeah.
tremendous amount of work behind the walls at CJTS at that time. So when that was kind of proposed as one of the locations to consider, I wanted to take a look for myself, because at that time I didn't have a direct knowledge of
Yep.
the building or the facility itself beyond what very minimal contact I had had. So I went on Good Friday, and the governor joined me because he also needed to see the space. And I think he expected there to be um, what I would call just horrific conditions.
Right.
You know, and I think when he went in, he was pleasantly surprised. And that's not to say that he did not recognize that the previous function of the facility was to detain kids. That is not at all what he's
Correct.
considering at this time. And we
Right.
are in the process of deciding what it is that we can recommend from an engineering standpoint needs to modify the sleeping quarters and any of the other accoutrements of that particular facility that we know were necessary to secure it at that time. So when you hear the public sentiment about, you know, why is this place being considered, for us it's about reimagining what Connecticut's future can be, what we can do to help in this humanitarian space, but also recognizing that with that comes the history of that particular facility and, you know, all the perceptions that went along with it.
Sure.
So, you know, we
Sure.
were literally in the beginning phases of talking to stakeholders, talking to subject matter experts, getting the opinion of advocacy groups when the media got
The
wind of
avalanche. Yes.
of the governor's visit. And so, you know, when that happens, it takes on a life of its own. So
Yeah.
what I will say right now, without getting into more detail about that, is the fact that we have committed to being transparent in our conversations and telling the DCF story our way, and creating the narrative that you all that have been our regulars have come to trust and come to
Hmm.
honor each time that we kind of get in front of these recordings. And I would just suggest that when information is out there, you come to the source, go to the COVID-19 mailbox, ask us questions directly. And, you know, we use these as a mechanism to be able to share just where we are on a particular topic. You know, when I hear people talk about the department's perspective and what we are doing or what we're not doing, I'm like, geez, where'd that come from? Because
Yeah.
I never said that. So
Yeah.
it's just has
Yeah.
been an interesting week.
It has. And Commissioner, you have certainly been in the forefront of many media stories, and the statement that you made that really resonates with me, and I know so many others, is you were very clear in response to a reporter's question that buildings do not care for youth, people do. And
Absolutely.
I think that sums up who you are, who the department is, and all of what we stand for.
Yeah, and I also think that it's important to recognize that the implication of race and culture and ethnicity and the needs of kids that come through when thinking about unaccompanied minors, and think about the distinction of races within kids here, and the kids who predominantly were placed as CJTS at the time. When I think about the care of kids, I think about the care of all kids and the standards that we have to put forth. So, when I said that, I meant it. How we do this work, how we in the department do this work, as well as our stakeholder partners, are definitely a signal as to how we care about Connecticut's kids.
Yeah. Yeah. So as we've talked about the unaccompanied minors and the potential role the department can play, it also brings to light that we are starting to plan for increasing our capacity in our regional offices and increasing our in-person functions across the department as well. We've used July as a potential date for that. We had some discussions this past Wednesday with senior administrators. What could you tell staff, again, so we can make sure the correct information's there, not go too far to the right, too far to the left, but just keep folks posted while we develop some further guidance for them in writing?
That's right. In the spring, last spring, we had to shift to do a lot of our work, in a remote capacity that we had never done before. We know that there are parts of our agency that never stopped. And then we also know that there were parts of our agency that was significantly modified. And we had to shift pretty quickly because we didn't know what this virus was about to do, or how many lives or how many changes to the way of life it was about to take on all of us. And so we did that in the spring. And then over the last year, we've been kind of really working with our senior leaders within the department in a unified command structure that has mirrored the governor's. And so we took our lead from them. We meet with leaders of the agency every week. We at one point were meeting with them every day.
Every
And
day,
then several
in the
times a
afternoon.
week. And then now it's every week where we hear from every function of the agency through its leadership. And so what we started to do this week is start to look what the dimmer looks like coming back up, because this was almost like a light switch back in the spring, and
Had to
now we are
stop.
kind of now we're like looking at what it will take to kind of start to think about what does increasing our functions look like. So we sent out the second iteration of the telework survey. We want as many people to take that as possible so we can hear what it's been like. We know a lot from what we've been able to review in the functions of our work, but we want to hear from all of you and the majority of our workforce who've been on the other end of the telework piece. And then we want to start giving some target dates of what that will start to look like. So we want to increase more in-person functions. And with that comes reminders to people about the use of appropriate PPE, refreshing some of those videos, getting them out there, getting people comfortable with, what increased contact will look like, continuing our conversations with the different labor unions, because we know a lot of their members will talk to them about concerns that they have. And we've had those kind of conversations at this time. We, want to make sure that we have the appropriate amount of PPE and cleaning supplies and giving people the right direction of what that looks like. We want to stay real focused on the capacity of our area offices in particular, because you don't want to go over, we don't want people rushing back into office spaces, because we know that crowded spaces are one of the highest transmitters of this particular virus. So, as vaccines roll out, at the same time as these variants increase, we want to make sure that the capacity of us being able to do our work and protect our staff at the same time is thoughtful and planned. I will say this, that oh my gosh, I forgot my train of thought. But that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I think what we were getting at is we did discuss with our senior leaders that by July 1st, we would increase our in-person functions as a department to 100% of where they were pre-pandemic. And concurrent with that, increase our reentry, increase the capacity of staff in our offices to no more than 50%, which also means we're going to have 50% of the time we're still going to telework. So those end dates of July 1st for the in-person functions, those are just we've touched on those. a lot more information is to come.
I do want to correct one little piece, and this is exactly what happens when we
Words
all
matter.
start talking. Words matter. It's not 50% of telework. The capacity piece is 50% in a particular space, and so right now the expanded telework permissions through the Department of Administrative Services is on an executive order. So when we, if those of you who thought about teleworking pre-pandemic know that the rules to telework were really, really narrow. Through an executive order, we have been able to expand that quite a bit. That's why it's important for us to get information back in this telework survey. Right now, we're still under that executive order. Also under an executive order is the capacity issue within our particular offices. So we're really trying to make sure that whatever it is that the standards and the powers that be have set for capacity and teleworking and remote work still function within what we need to do. And this is what I had just lost my train of thought, that they have said to us, continue to do this work remotely as much as possible. And I have to determine what of our work should be done remotely as much as possible, because we know that there's pieces of our work that likely should be in person. So it's that balance. It's a balancing act of keeping everybody safe but still conducting the work of the agency. We'll get there, you guys, and we're going to get there together, because I've committed to that. And what you've seen demonstrated by this, when I tell you this exec team and the senior leadership at DCF couldn't work harder, they have worked tireless to make sure all of your needs are met. So I'm proud of our work, and I'm proud of our planning, but we still have a ways to go. I just didn't want people to feel like we were ripping the Band-Aid off, because that's certainly not what's happening.
So more information to come, especially some much more detailed information in writing at some point this coming week. So Commissioner, anything else that you would like to say to staff before we give folks the opportunity to shut the video off prior to talking about the statistics?
No, I think just the theme of this this week's conversation has been go to the source. Hear DCF, hear me, hear us, hear what we put out in writing, and and when you hear things in a broader context, approach it with a level of discernment until you hear it directly from me.
Absolutely. So thank you. And if there's any staff who do not wish to hear the updated statistics, now is the time to shut off the video. So what we have currently are 348 caregivers, 283 youth, and 361 staff that over the course of the year, actually last 14 months, have at some point tested positive for COVID-19. I think those numbers combined are over 1,000 individuals.
Yeah, we hit an ominous milestone within the department, and that is kind of reaching that 1,000 mark. When we think of those three cohorts that we've been following, we do, the importance of what we just said in the previous segment of reinforcing the proper PPE, reinforcing the proper cleaning supplies as this pandemic has worn on. We've seen during our contact tracing. So we'll just continue to drive those home in people's personal and professional lives, because this virus is still very real.
Absolutely. So we've covered a lot to be covered. I'm looking forward to a great couple of weeks, and we'll be back with the group. So take care of yourself, Commissioner. We'll see you at the end of April.
Yeah, as I sit here with the scratched cornea, so half my face is swollen. Take care of yourself too, Ken.
Thank you. Bye-bye.